I want to start today with a question that, well, it honestly stopped me in my tracks when I was reading through our source material.
Okay.
It's a pretty provocative one, and I think for a lot of people, maybe especially those in ministry or nonprofit work, it might be a little triggering.
I have a feeling I know exactly which one you're talking about. It's the one about the greatest threat, isn't it?
That's the one. Because usually when we talk about threats to a mission, and in this case, the mission of God, we're looking outward.
Sure. We talk about persecution, secularism, funding.
Exactly all the tangible, scary things. But this text, it asks something totally different. It asks, what if the greatest threat is actually unformed passion?
It's an incredibly heavy premise.
Right.
And it feels so counterintuitive, right?
Completely.
Because in our culture, and you definitely see it in modern ministry, we basically worship passion. We celebrate zeal, enthusiasm.
Big crowds, viral moments, all of it. We think if the energy is high, the movement has to be healthy.
Exactly. We look for the spark. We look for the heat. But the documents we're diving into today argue that enthusiasm without formation is, well, it's incredibly fragile.
And even dangerous. The text actually says it can be dangerous.
Dangerous is the right word. The core tension we're exploring here is between two images the author uses: the fireworks display and the hearth.
Oh, okay.
We love fireworks. They're bright, they're loud, they draw a huge crowd really fast. But what happens? They're gone in seconds.
And they leave a mess you have to clean up the next morning.
Right. Whereas a hearth, well, that's a fire that's contained. It's structured. It's intentional.
It provides warmth for the long haul.
For the long haul. So the whole mission of this deep dive is to figure out how we move from being a firework to building a hearth. It's about understanding what the source calls the architecture of obedience.
I really like that phrase, architecture of obedience. It implies design,
Yeah.
that you don't just stumble into spiritual maturity.
You don't.
But before we get into the blueprints, let's define formation. Because in some circles, formation just means learning more stuff. Is this just about advanced Bible study?
That's a super common misconception, but the text is clear that formation is not just information transfer. You can know all the theology and still be completely unformed.
Okay, so what is it then?
Based on the text, formation is the deliberate shaping of the heart, mind, and hands to sustain the weight of the gospel over a lifetime.
Sustain the weight. That sounds like structural engineering.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Resilience isn't an accident. Formation is the difference between a momentary impulse to do good and a character that's been forged to endure hardship, rejection, and, well, even boredom.
It's about finishing the race, not just starting with a sprint.
That's it.
So let's unpack the problem a bit more. This trap of passion alone. Because I think a lot of us, myself included, have fallen for it. We see someone super charismatic, super fiery, and our first instinct is, they're ready, put them on stage, send them out.
Don't slow them down.
Right. And that is exactly where the text says the danger is. It uses this really compelling and honestly pretty sad story to illustrate it. The story of Sarah.
Yeah, the story of Sarah resonated because you feel like you've met a dozen Sarahs.
You do. So for everyone listening, Sarah is described as this gifted evangelist. Young, draws crowds effortlessly, has this infectious energy. Her youth group is exploding.
On the surface, if you just looked at the metrics, it's a massive success story.
Absolutely. She has the fire.
But the text points out she lacked a hearth. There was no discipleship structure, no deep rhythms of personal prayer or rest, and this is crucial, no mentorship with the authority to tell her no.
Or just slow down. And we can all guess where that goes. It's the classic Icarus story.
Sadly, yes. Burnout, disillusionment, the whole ministry just collapsed because, as the text says, unformed passion is fragile. When the excitement wore off and the real weight of leadership hit, the conflict, the admin, the emotional toll, she didn't have the internal structure to carry it.
She had the engine of a Ferrari, but the chassis of a bicycle. That's a great image.
It is. And it's a tragic pattern. The source actually draws a biblical parallel here to the Israelites in the wilderness.
Okay, I can see that.
They had the passion to leave Egypt, right? The zeal for freedom. They walked out with their fists in the air, but their hearts were completely unformed.
They were physically out of Egypt, but internally they were still thinking like slaves.
Precisely. At Sinai, they say, all the Lord has spoken, we will do. That's passion. That's a fireworks display. But a few weeks later,
Their golden calf.
they're worshiping a golden calf because Moses took too long. Passion gave them the spark to leave, but it didn't give them the fuel for the long haul.
You know, there's a phrase in there that just floored me. Commitment outpaced transformation.
That's a sticky phrase.
It makes you realize that just wanting to do the right thing isn't enough if you haven't been shaped into the kind of person who can do it when the pressure's on.
And social media just amplifies this problem to a deafening degree. We glorify the firebrand, the viral clip. We want the fruit without the root.
Okay, so we've established that fire without a hearth just burns the house down, or it fizzles out. So how do we fix it? How do we build this architecture of obedience?
Well, the answer isn't stop being passionate. You need the fire.
For sure.
Passion is the fuel, but you have to build the engine. And the source presents this framework, a triad of formation. It's 3 simple words: share, pray, go.
Share, pray, go. I'll be honest, when I first read that, it sounded a little generic, like a Sunday school sticker chart.
It does if you just skim it.
Yeah.
And that's the mistake we usually make. We treat them as tasks on a to-do list.
Okay, shared my faith, check. Prayed for 5 minutes, check.
Exactly. But the text argues this isn't a to-do list, it's a formation grid.
A formation grid. Okay, explain that difference.
A to-do list is about activity. A formation grid is about identity, who you're becoming. It's a shift from what the text calls heroic effort, where it all depends on your charisma, to systems of formation.
Reproducible habits.
Reproducible habits that shape who you are. So you're prepared spiritually, intellectually, and practically.
Okay, let's test this grid. Let's dive into the first one. Share. The misconception here is that sharing just means being allowed, right?
Right. Grab a megaphone.
Yeah, if people get annoyed, you must be doing it right.
Boldness is good, sure.
Yeah.
But the text argues that effective sharing requires 2 specific things: clarity and contextualization.
Contextualization. That sounds like a big seminary word. Break it down for us.
It just means translating the truth without compromising it.
Yeah.
It's understanding your audience so deeply that the message actually lands. And the source gives this incredible historical case study of Hudson Taylor.
Oh, the missionary to China in the 1800s. I remember reading about him.
Yes. So most missionaries at the time went to China and lived in these European compounds. They wore heavy wool clothes in the heat. They ate British food.
They basically preached a European Jesus.
They did. And Hudson Taylor saw that as this massive, unnecessary barrier.
So he did something that actually got him in a lot of trouble, didn't it?
Radical trouble. He adopted Chinese dress. He shaved the front of his head and wore a queue, a pigtail, which was the custom. He ate their food. He learned the language deeply.
He literally changed his hair, his clothes.
Well,
he made himself relatable.
He did more than that. He removed all the hurdles that had nothing to do with the gospel.
Yeah.
He combined, as the text says, theological rigor with relational wisdom. He understood that if the medium is alienating, the message won't be heard. Passion might make you loud, but formation makes you clear.
There's a practical exercise in the text about this that I thought was terrifying but brilliant. They call it the 3-minute gospel.
It's a great stress test. Can you articulate the core truth of the gospel clearly and simply in 3 minutes? No jargon, no Christianese.
It sounds so easy until you actually try to do it. You realize how many filler words you use.
Exactly. If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. And if you can't do that, no amount of passion will save the conversation.
It forces you to really know what you believe. An unformed witness rambles. A formed witness translates.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay, on to the second pillar. Pray. Now, let's be honest. In a lot of high-energy ministries, prayer can feel like the sidecar.
Or the spare tire.
The spare tire. You only use it when things break down. We plan the strategy, set the budget, and then ask God to bless what we've already decided to do.
The emergency cord view of prayer. The source completely flips this. It argues that prayer is the engine of mission. Not something you do for the mission. It is the work.
It quotes Luke 10:2, doesn't it? The harvest is plentiful, therefore pray.
Pray to the Lord of the harvest. Notice the order. Jesus doesn't say go buy a scythe. He says pray. It comes first. But again, the text gives us this historical example that just blows my mind. The Moravians.
This is my favorite part of the deep dive, the story of the community at Herrnhut. It sounds like something out of a legend.
It is astounding history. So under Count Zinzendorf in the 1700s, this community of refugees started a prayer watch. They committed to praying for the mission of God 24 hours a day, nonstop.
And tell everyone how long it lasted. Because this wasn't a weekend retreat.
It lasted for 100 years.
100 years. I can barely focus for 10 minutes. Can you imagine the discipline required to keep a prayer meeting going for a century?
It's an unbroken chain of prayer spanning generations.
Yeah.
But here's the so what. This wasn't just a holy huddle. That prayer room fueled one of the most significant global missions movements in history.
I think the stat was they sent out more missionaries in 2 decades than all of Protestantism had in 2 centuries.
It's unbelievable. And it connects right back to that engine concept.
Mm.
The prayer fueled the going.
It wasn't just devotion, it was strategic formation.
Exactly. The text calls it a shift from reactive enthusiasm, praying when you feel like it, to strategic obedience. They interceded with discipline.
That is a convicting distinction, which leads us perfectly into the third part of the triad, go.
The go component.
And the tension here is real. If you feel that passion, the urge is to just go. Buy the plane ticket, start the nonprofit, do it now. We treat any kind of delay as disobedience.
And the source warns that going is the ultimate litmus test of discipleship, because the act of going exposes all the gaps between your zeal and your actual competence.
It's where the rubber meets the road.
For sure. It's easy to love the world from your living room. It's a lot harder when you're there.
The text lists 3 readiness factors for going, and I found one of them. Well, a bit surprising, because it feels kind of unspiritual.
You mean the logistical one?
Yeah, you have spiritual readiness, resilience, handling rejection. You have relational readiness, cultural intelligence. And then it lists practical or logistical readiness as a key spiritual discipline.
Yes. And this is so often overlooked. We hyper-spiritualize mission and think, God will provide it. I don't need a plan.
Right. We think administration is what kills the spirit.
But the text says logistics, visas, budgets, health insurance. These are spiritual issues. Because if you burn out from exhaustion or get deported or run out of money, your mission ends.
Your lack of preparation silences your witness. You become a burden.
Exactly. So preparation isn't unspiritual. It's stewardship. Look at the biblical model in Acts 13 with Barnabas and Saul. They weren't sent on a whim.
No, the text says they were worshiping and fasting.
It was spirit-led discernment, confirmed by the community. It wasn't an impulsive solo mission. It was a communal sending of prepared people.
The text draws this great contrast between the heroic missionary and the formed missionary.
The heroic missionary relies on their own stamina and charisma and, well, usually burns out in about 2 years.
Yeah.
The formed missionary like Mark and Anna in the text sustains ministry for decades. Why? Because they prepared.
So we have clarity in sharing, the engine of prayer, and preparedness in going. But this isn't just about making one person effective. There's a bigger picture here the text calls multiplication.
This is the ultimate goal, legacy. The source says we have to shift our thinking from participation to reproduction.
Explain that difference, because in a metrics-obsessed world, participation usually wins.
Participation is filling the seats. It's getting 500 people in a room. That looks like success. But reproduction is training others to train others. It's the difference between addition and multiplication.
And we're back to the fireworks versus hearth analogy. Fireworks don't reproduce. You can't use a burnt-out firework to light another one.
No, you can't. But a hearth sustains a household for generations. And the historical case study here is John Wesley. Wesley was a fiery preacher, sure, but so were a lot of people. George Whitefield was arguably a better preacher. But why did the Methodist movement survive and change the world, while Whitefield's influence, massive as it was, didn't leave the same structural legacy?
It wasn't just his preaching.
No, it was his structure. Wesley didn't just preach to crowds, he organized them into societies and classes.
Class meeting.
Exactly, small groups. Accountability. He created a system where formation was institutionalized. It didn't depend on Wesley being in the room. He built a structure that could function without him.
And that's the key, isn't it? If the movement depends on your personal charisma, it dies with you. That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of leaders.
It's the hard truth. We have to move from heroic effort to systems of formation. If you can't reproduce what you're doing in someone else, you're not building a legacy. You're just putting on a show.
That hits hard. It forces you to ask, am I really training anyone? Or am I just doing the work myself because it's faster and, I get the credit?
And that connects to the overarching theme of legacy. The text brings up Revelation 7.9, that vision of a multitude from every nation, tribe, and tongue. That vision isn't achieved by a few superstars. It's achieved by a multitude of faithful, formed witnesses reproducing over generations.
So let's bring this all together. We started with the danger of unformed passion. We've walked through the solution, this architecture of obedience.
Which is sharing with clarity, praying with strategy, and going with preparation.
A move from fragility to stability, from a spark to a fire that lasts.
Right.
But I have to ask, this sounds hard and slow and frankly, Pretty unglamorous. Nobody wins an award for best logistics preparation.
Oh, it is. The text is very honest about that. Formation is costly, it costs time, it costs your ego, because you have to submit to learning and structure. You won't get the immediate applause.
It's so much easier to just be enthusiastic and wing it.
It is. Passion is cheap. Formation is expensive. It requires what Eugene Peterson called a long obedience in the same direction.
But the reward is a life that actually bears weight. A ministry that doesn't collapse.
And a legacy that outlasts you.
You know, there's a final thought in the source material that I really want to leave our listeners with. It's a challenge. It says, the question isn't whether you have passion, it's whether you will let that passion be shaped, disciplined, and multiplied into a gospel that endures.
That's the crux of it.
So as you go about your week, whether you're leading a team or raising a family or just trying to be a faithful witness where you are, maybe ask yourself this. Are you building a firework? Or are you building a hearth?
That's the question.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you next time.